Good morning, church. Good morning. That's a very robust good morning. I'm proud of you guys. I just want to start, is anybody mad at me? You guys are, okay. The reason I'm asking is because I may be the reason why there's so much snow. I keep praying for it. So if you're mad at me and you want to talk about it, I'll be down in front. But I love the snow. I don't necessarily love shoveling it, but I love looking at it. And it is just so beautiful outside. And you still made it here, which is awesome. And we're so excited. Glad to see you here this morning. If you're new, you might be wondering, did the youth take over the church? And the answer would be no. But sometimes we intentionally give them the keys and let them drive a little bit, right? And you might say, well, that's risky. But we would say, what's more risky than that? Telling our young people to sit and be quiet and wait your turn to lead and wait your turn to do important things. We think that's even more risky than turning them loose every once in a while. And so, of course, there's some preparation and there's some training involved, but we are willing to invest our time and our resources to give the next generation meaningful reps and meaningful opportunities to lead and do important things. And aren't you so glad that we have teenagers that are willing to give up sleeping in on a Sunday morning? Yeah, we appreciate them for their time and willingness to come in here early on a Sunday morning and prepare. And they've been putting in tons of work over the last few months to learn these songs and to be able to play them. And it's just such a blessing to my heart to be able to be in the front row and be led by them. See, Paul, who wrote a lot of the New Testament, he wrote a letter of encouragement to a young church leader named Timothy. And this is a guy he trained and he walked with for a decent amount of time, and then he unleashed him to lead a church in a city called Ephesus. And apparently, at that time, older, more seasoned believers kind of looked at Timothy and was like, hey, I don't know if you're old enough to do this. Maybe you need more seasoning, and maybe you need a little bit more time. And they were questioning Timothy's maturity and his leadership solely due to his age. And Paul wrote some letters of encouragement. And in 1 Timothy chapter 4, Paul says this. He says, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young. Pause. Okay? Now, scholars can't exactly agree on how old Timothy was at the time of receiving this letter. Some would argue that he was in his mid to late 20s. And then others could argue that it was possibly as old as almost 40 years old. But most scholars land somewhere in the early 30s. So if you think about it, in the early 30s, pastor of a church, I'm my late 40s, so somebody who's way younger than me, you can kind of see in a space like this where somebody might say they don't have enough life experience, they don't know enough, they haven't experienced enough. And maybe there might be a little something to that. But that shouldn't be a limiter to what God can do, especially when God is with you. Now, he was leading the church in Ephesus, but considering a large contingency of this church was older than he was, you can see how people might have a little bit of he's too young for this attitude. But Paul saw something in Timothy, and he called it out, and he sent him out. And he took Timothy under his wing, and he encouraged him and trained him. And when the time was right, he unleashed him to lead. And so Paul is sending him this encouragement. And so it says in 1 Timothy 4:12, again, don't let anyone look down on you because you're young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity. Welcome to week 3 of what we're calling poster board theology, where we're kind of digging into the fundamental values that we hold closest here at Movement. They're core to what we believe, and they absolutely affect and infect every single way that we behave. You see, we believe that people will never know how important they are until they have important things that they're given to do. And if you're new to movement, this is a perfect time with this series to kind of get a peek under the hood of what makes movement, why we do what we do. And it's a great time to kind of just sit and take it in and decide, like, is this the kind of community that I could get behind, I could get into, could be a part of? And this series is going to tell you every bit you need to know, and you'll have all the info you need to make an informed decision. We hope that it is to be a part of movement, but if not, we are just glad that you're here today checking it out. And whether you're with us online or you're in the house, we are so glad to be in this with you. So this week, I don't think you have to guess what we're going to be talking about, but we are a church that invests in the leaders of today, the folks who do important stuff today, people who are following Jesus today, and then as well, folks who will do that in the future, which we're talking about young folks. So we're not just a place where folks who are adults can move closer to Jesus. We are a place where students and kids and even babies are encouraged and helped to move closer to Jesus and people. And last week, Stephen helped us to see that the danger for us as a church isn't necessarily to suddenly plunge into heresy. It's possible for us to slowly drift. And so this is why we have core values to come back to on a somewhat regular basis so that we know, so we do not drift, okay? So pulling from Paul's challenge in his encouragement to Timothy, we can all get better at how we speak to and about people, okay? Paul encouraged Timothy, set an example in your speech. I think we can all do that. That's not just for young folks. That's not just for older folks. That's for all folks. We can get better in the ways that we conduct ourselves, the ways that we behave, the language. To use the language from week 1, we can all get better at living the truth of what we're learning in God's Word. We can all do a better job of really loving people. We can all get better at walking out our faith. And I think we can all get better at not letting our hearts get contaminated with what's going on in the world. So Paul's words here in 1 Timothy, they're applicable to all of us, young and old. We should all set an example in the way that we speak, in our conduct, in our love, in our faith, and in purity. So if you've heard me speak before, you know I like to ask questions to engage people, get them thinking, get them pondering the mysteries of the universe, and then some of the mysteries of the minutia, okay? So here's a question for you, okay? What gets you spicy? Pause. Let that percolate for just a second. Now, when I say spicy, I mean worked up as Michael Buffer, if you know, you're ready to rumble, okay? What gets you spicy? Some of you guys are I've been waiting for this my entire life. Let me tell you what makes me spicy. I would say, man, we're going to have leaders down front that would love to have conversations about what makes you spicy. But I graduated from Southwest Baptist University in Missouri with a degree in art education. And I immediately got hired as a kindergarten through 4th grade art teacher, okay? And I was also coaching a high school soccer team. And now, let me tell you, you might be thinking kindergartners, walking them through an art lesson would be easy, okay? But I would have anywhere from 18 to 24 kindergartners, and where I was working, I would have kindergartners all day. So I would have 6 classes back to back of 18 to 24 kindergartners, okay? And when I say they didn't know how to use scissors, I mean they did not know how to use scissors. Some of you are really? Is that real? Yes. Some of them did not know. They're using both hands. They're they're crying because they're trying to cut something and they can't do it. They couldn't. We were walking through how to use scissors. And glue, didn't know how to use glue. Glitter, They didn't know how to use glitter either. Sometimes crayons, and then there would be a meltdown because the crayon would get down to the paper and they were like, I don't know what to do. I can't color with the red anymore, the rojo. I can't. And then you would tear the paper and then some of them would be happy with that. And then others would be like, you just ripped it. Oh my God. And then we would melt down into something else, okay? So it was an adventure. But there's a lot of emotional energy that is dispensed and dispersed when patiently and lovingly teaching kiddos the most basic of things. And then I taught high school. I transferred into teaching high school art and graphic design in a low-income, high free and reduced lunch school district. And that was an adventure, okay? I had my truck keyed from headlight to taillight. I had all four tires slashed by a student that I had his brother a few years later, and his brother tells me, he was like, and this a long story, I could fill you in more, but come to find out, his brother's like, you were his favorite teacher. What? Okay, that was before we had some building and relationship stuff to do. Okay, yeah, all the while, I had to break up fights. I had to prevent fights, and all the while, I'm trying to encourage kids to see and students to see the importance and the benefits of creativity and how beautiful it can be and how it can be a way to in a healthy way express what's going on inside you and express the gifts that God put in you. So that is why when I hear things like teachers are just babysitters, I get a little spicy, okay? I am married to one, so that probably contributes as well. I'm married to a teacher, but maybe you've never thought that, but maybe you've thought like teachers, they get 3 months off, right? So they only have to work 9 months out of the year. First off, no, okay? In reality, teachers, at least around here, get about 7 weeks off before you count the in-services and professional development days and prep work that goes into breaking down a class at the end of the year and then building up a classroom at the beginning of a new year. And when it's all said and done, they might get 3 to 4 actual weeks where they can not work. So some would say, yeah, but they get personal and sick days too, right? To which I would say, what would you do if you had three, count them, 3 days in 1 year to do something that you might actually want to do? See, I'm getting spicy. I'm just getting spicy again. Bottom line, here's the thing. Here's the bottom line. We don't like it when people diminish or devalue something that we work really, really hard on, right? Like those who serve in our armed forces, active or retired, they don't generally like it when folks are disrespectful of the U.S. flag or the U.S. in general, because some have given all and all have given some. So that's why when someone accidentally, and I say accidentally because I know it's never an intentional thing, when somebody refers to our next-gen programming or our kids' programming upstairs as childcare, I am quick to reframe the conversation. So this week's value in 3 words is now and next. We are committed to raising up Jesus followers who are living it out now and those who are on deck, those who are next. And if you see this poster here, it says, we don't do childcare. It's right out of the gate. We don't do childcare. We invest irrationally in the next generation of leaders and Jesus followers. So important to who we are. See, when we diminish or devalue someone or something, it costs us something. Okay? It actually costs us what's called influence when you diminish or devalue someone. And Jesus knew this. And Jesus was a master of influence. Influence is it's a funny thing. It's a lot like trust. Okay? And there was this guy named Kevin Plank who was the CEO of Under Armour. And if you know about the debacle in the Olympics, I think it was 2014, where Under Armour had made these these revolutionary suits for the Winter Olympics for one of the Olympic teams, and the team just hated them. They got into competitions and they hated them, and it immediately like tanked Under Armour's like reputation for a season. Okay, and Kevin Plank, the CEO of Under Armour, said this: "Trust is built in drops, and it is lost in buckets." You know that's true. I know that's true. Influence is the same way. It's a lot like trust. It takes time, and it's earned a little bit at a time, one drop at a time. And we want to be the kind of people that are investing in drops over a long period of time. Jesus began to demonstrate this idea of like building influence early in his life. Early. Not once he was officially an adult at 18, okay? Not even like when he got his Chariot's driver's license or whatever they drove back then at 16, okay? In Luke 2, I'll give you a chance to turn there if you want, if you got your physical Bible or if you've got the YouVersion Bible app. Luke 2, there's a passage that reminds me of a time when our boys were young. They were little. If you didn't know this, my wife Stacy and I have 3 boys. They are 12 and 14 months apart, okay? Now they are 22, 21, and soon to be 20, okay? It's crazy. Time just flies. But when they were like 5, 6, and 7-ish, Stacy and I were sleep deprived and borderline manic, trying to keep these 3 little menaces alive and on track. And so the details are foggy of this, and I probably should have cleared these up with my wife, but she'll correct me between services. But the sheer adrenaline we were running on was like the only thing keeping us upright. But we were all at a church event, and it was our church in Oklahoma. And for those of you guys who have multiple kids, we came in separate vehicles. Okay. Some of you already know where this might be going. I had Carson, our oldest, like the church event wrapped up. It was like a family experience kind of thing that we do here. It was there. And I had Carson, and I was taking him to a soccer practice. And Stacy had Cooper, our youngest, and she was headed to a grocery store or an errand or something. Now, you're probably doing the math, going, that's not enough, right? And you would be right. Who had the middle son? That was the question. The forgotten one, Camden. Camden, I love you, buddy, if you're with us online. It turns out, yes, we did leave our child at church, okay? I mean, of all places that you're going to leave a kid, that's probably one of the better ones, but didn't make us feel much better as humans or parents to leave your child anywhere, okay? But we immediately were like, calling and making sure that somebody got eyes on our lost child, okay? And in Luke 2, starting in verse 41, the story unfolds of Jesus' parents going to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. And this festival wraps up, and they headed home. And they get, okay, and when Stacy and I figured this out, Camden had only been at church for probably 15 minutes, and the reality is he didn't even know we left him. Jesus' parents figured this out a full day after they were traveling, and they had traveled for a full day when they realized, oh my gosh, we lost our child, okay? So like, if you need like to be able to relate to the Bible, and sometimes people like tell stories where everything's perfect. Stuff in the Bible is not perfect. Like, it is stuff that we can actually relate to. It's real. Like, Joseph and Mary were like real humans, okay? They were real. And so anyway, they noticed after a day's travel that they did not have Jesus. And so they tracked back, and they lived out their own little Home Alone story. And they got back, and it took them 3 days total to find Jesus. And they found him in the temple, and he was asking questions of the leaders. He was learning already. It's crazy. And in Luke 2:52, this is something that shapes a lot of the ministry that we do here at Movement. In Luke 2:52, it says, "And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature, and in favor with both God and man. That's a blueprint for what we want to do as Jesus followers, and what we want to help our students and our kids and our toddlers learn is important. He didn't just grow in the eyes of God. He didn't just learn Bible verses and memorize and get smarter. He earned influence with people. That's tough. That's not as easy. It's real easy to lock the doors and stay in here and memorize scripture and stuff like that. But going out into the world with people who are broken and they're asking really hard questions, that is difficult. Now, sometimes in churches, maybe with all the best of intentions, the mentality can be they need to wait until they're older and they know more. But I love how Stephen last week likened movement to a training regimen, not a buffet. Okay, I thought that was awesome. And if you missed that message, you got to go back and check it out. And that training is for young and old. We invest in high quality curriculum here that starts as early as 18 months. And it goes all the way up until graduation. And it helps toddlers, it helps kids, and it helps teens begin to form a faith of their own and internalize how big and how good God is. But then we try to challenge them to do some big things. And this poster says we invest irrationally. Irrationally is kind of a strategic word. The reality is, those of you guys, stuff's expensive these days, right? Okay, I'm not just talking about goldfish crackers, okay? I'm talking about renting vans to go to camps and talking about all the different expenses that are associated with putting on good quality next-gen programming. We could actually turn this whole stage into an LED wall every year for what we invest in our next-gen ministries, but we decide that we're not going to do that. We're not going to spend money on technology. We're going to keep that budget tight so that we can invest irrationally in our next gen. Okay? We believe it is a wise investment, and as you can see, as we're being led by students now, every once in a while, that investment is beginning to show a return. So, if you give here at Movement, thank you. You are investing in the now and the next, because obviously what goes on down here is for our leaders, and we've got leaders who prepare communion here at Movement, and we call people leaders because we don't believe that certain things are more important than others, because the reality is, if all of our teams, if one of our teams just did not show up on a Sunday morning, everything would be disrupted. We've got leaders who say hi to people and welcome people as they walk in the room. We have leaders that work with kids. We have leaders that hang out with babies. We have leaders who are committed to keeping us safe, and so much more. We have leaders who prepare technology so that the Word of God can be on screens and it can be beamed off into the universe to exist forever. We have opportunities for so many folks who are adults, who are leading right now, but we also have to create, and we are committed to creating spaces for the next generation to lead. And here at Movement, we've decided to pour gas on the gifts of people instead of just pointing out problems. And we believe that raising up and launching folks into meaningful ministry, whether they are retired or haven't even had their first job yet, and anyone in between. Maybe you've heard of the Great Commission. If not, it was the last challenge that Jesus gave before going back to be with God in heaven. And it's found at the end of Matthew's gospel in Matthew 28. And you got to check it out. I'm going to give you a little bit of it here. Jesus said in Matthew 28, verse 19 through 20, "Therefore go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey the commands I have given you, and be sure of this: I am with you always, even to the end of the age. It's funny, well, I mean, maybe it's not funny, but it's at least noteworthy that Jesus didn't make a, you must be this tall to tackle this ride, okay? He said, make disciples of all people. And he didn't just say, once you're past this age, you are no longer able to participate. This was an all-skate challenge. And this is one way that we commit to making sure that we don't leave our kids and our students sitting in the background waiting for their turn. We're intentionally and frequently investing in them. And that's why we've got opportunities to serve on so many teams here at Movement. Whether you are in the middle of life, whether you have lived a lot of life, or you are new to life, there are lots of opportunities to serve here at Movement. We believe in creating meaningful opportunities to serve. And whether it's on site here within the building at 27 Depot Street, or if it's in our schools, in our offices, in our living rooms, and out in our communities. Because hope is in short supply in the world right now. And we know where the hope springs eternal. So if you're an adult and you'd like to serve, man, there are so many places that we could use folks who have gifts and abilities. And we don't necessarily just say, here's our need and this is where you're going to go. We try to have conversations and say, like, what are your gifts? What are your passions? And let's see if there's a place where those things intersect with the needs here at Movement. And we would love to have some of those conversations. And I'll be down front, and we'll have some leaders in the green zone as well to have those kinds of questions answered and conversations. But I'm just so grateful. You know, a lot of this is geared towards next-gen stuff because in a lot of churches, it's just kind of an afterthought, okay? And so we believe that it is so important to continue to raise up the generations of now and the generations that are next. And it is so encouraging to see, like, we have a student leadership team now that helps in so many different ways. They're learning some stuff. They're doing important stuff. We have this band that is working every single week now that is leading worship in our student environments. And it is really an encouragement to me. There's mentorship going on outside of Sunday mornings in really cool ways. And if you serve in any of our next-gen environments, would you just take a second and raise your hand? Yes. Thank you. Yes. So when we say we invest irrationally, some might look and say it is irrational for you to give up multiple weekends, Sunday mornings, to go and invest in other kids, other people's kids. Some might look at that and say that's irrational, but not you. And I am so, so grateful for you. So if you are somebody who you're like, I like kids, I just don't know if I know enough about the Bible to help, okay? We can absolutely help with that, okay? And if you're like, kids terrify me, then, okay, we're not going to ask you to serve in kids ministry, right? Okay, we want folks who have a passion for the next generation, but we are committed to it. We are investing in it with not just finances, but with human capital and with everything we've got. And this is the result. Now, we would love it if you would stand as our students lead us in one more song that reminds us that God will always provide, no matter what.